All right, welcome to another episode of The American Dream. I'm your host, Craig Sewing, where our goal every show is to go against the grain of that negative media. Today, we got a great show lined up for you. We are talking about legacy. What's more important than the impact you make in the greatest country on planet Earth? So we're going to be diving into some great advice and stories along the legacy theme. Of course, if you want to engage in the conversation, you can do so online. That being said, let's get this show started right now. Every single day, you are consumed with information. The 24/7 negative news cycle and the pop culture that's polluting the airways, all selling out for the ratings game. Well, guess what? There's a more positive way to look at life. You live in the greatest city in the greatest country on the planet. Every day with our elite network of professionals, our goal is to educate, empower, and engage. And now it's time to fight for your American dream. Now for the word on the American Dream. Today's show, we are theming around legacy. Now on this program, we talk a lot about success. I want to make a very key point here. Success is not determined by income, it's determined by impact. Let's use the American Dream as an example. This is a show not owned by a network. It's commercial free, where we have partnerships that have helped us launch all across the country, going against the grain of the negative media that you're so tired of. That's making an impact. And there's a business around this whole thing as well, called Ignite Media. We're really, really proud of it. I want you to think about the impact that you're having in your business, or maybe your personal life, your family, whatever it may be. How do you make an impact? Now is the best time in the history of mankind to build a brand, to make that impact, and it's through digital and social media. You can aggregate attention now better than ever. So what better opportunity than 2018 to make a social impact? We want to incentivize you to do that. We want to fan the flame for you today. You're going to hear some great interviews on the topic, some inspiration, and don't forget, you can always connect with us online to get more information as well. Let's start the American Dream legacy right now.
All right, welcome to the American Dream. Today I have with me Steve Dinkin and Ashley Virtue of the National Conflict Resolution Center. Steve and Ashley, thank you so much for being here with us today. I know heading into 2018, one of the biggest things that always come up every year is conflict in the workplace. How do we work through it? That's why we have you two. You're so integral to the workplace, to getting through things. So touch on a little bit what you guys do at the National Conflict Resolution Center and how people can really take advantage of what you guys do.
I think we all sense that there's such a feeling of incivility in our lives right now, and it's happening in our families, in the workplace, across society and government. And as an organization, we've come up with a series of tools and techniques to help people address conflict, to improve their lives and be more proactive to avoid conflict.
Absolutely. I know you two are the pros. Steve, you've been with the company for 15 years. Ashley, you've been there for 13. Yes. So certainly between you two, you guys can be the spokespeople for, figuring out resolution between you two and then being the role models to project it to the people that you work with. What are some of the most common problems that you see, and how do you direct them on how to get through it?
Well, at the National Conflict Resolution Center, we've developed an innovative tool and strategy called the Exchange, and it's an informal mediation process designed for the workplace. Mm-hmm. And so when individuals, workers, colleagues are in a dispute, the manager can intervene to try to address the situation. And one of the tools that the manager uses, it's called the icebreaker, to start the discussion between the two employees. So the employees might be in a dispute, and the natural tendency for them to come in and just start complaining, right, and focus on their differences. Yep. Well, the icebreaker allows individuals to focus on the commonality.
Sure. So instead of immediately going to the defense, you pick a neutral topic, you kind of break the ice so that it's a little bit more of a welcoming environment for people to be able to figure out their differences. That's an awesome thing. So what else? What other besides icebreaker can we do to navigate?
Well, one of the things that we really teach employees to do, managers to help facilitate, is really, really listen to the other person. And this is one of the hardest things to do when you're in a conflict, because our natural tendency is to hear the person we're in conflict with and immediately start thinking about how we're going to defend ourselves. Exactly. Exactly. And so one of the things that's great to do is really listen to the other person and hear what they're saying, but also hear what they're not saying. And what we mean by that is a lot of times folks come into a conflict with their complaints. This is why I'm angry. But what we need to get to is what are the underlying needs that the person is experiencing.
Completely.
And if you're in conflict with someone, that sounds like you're compromising a lot to them, but that's not really the case. You're helping yourself.
Absolutely.
If you're able to do that, because once you can identify what it is that was their underlying need they didn't feel was met, you're able to then start to try to meet that need, acknowledge it, and that kind of disarms them enough that they may start listening to you a little more effectively.
It's like a real-life negotiation, which we are no
Absolutely.
stranger to. Well, we are so thankful. I know you two have job security for life. Conflict will never go away, and we appreciate you being here with us today. We love what you do, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's our
Thank you for
pleasure.
having us.
Of course. We'll be right back with more American Dream.
Well, on today's show, we're really focusing on helping you make a financial impact on your life. Joining us in studio, the Options Lady. First time you sat down with me, Laurie Itkin. You are an author of a book, and you have a great story that kind of is a great way to frame all of this. So talk about how becoming financially literate helped change your life and what you're doing now. But start with your own personal experience.
Sure. Well, Craig, I'm so happy to be here. Love the show, love the positive outlook you have
Thank
here,
you.
positive stories. So becoming financially literate literally changed my life. All right, let me tell you, I was 24 years old, living in Washington, D.C. I had already been laid off twice, 24 years old. Tiny apartment, no car, up to here with student loans, right? And my grandmother dies, and she leaves me a $1,600 inheritance.
Okay.
Now, what do you think most women would do with a $1,600 windfall?
Well, I could tell you what I would have done at age 24 as a man. I would have blown it at the bars and beer and been done with it in probably 2 weekends.
Wow. Wow. You should have
There
been
you go.
buying around for me then. I wish I had known you then. Well, most women would probably spend it on clothes and shoes. I'm sure you've had a girlfriend in the past or two that would do that.
To each his own. Got it.
To each his own.
So
But-
you had $1,600, age 24, laid off twice.
Right. And I knew, I made a very important decision. I knew that to change the course of my life, I couldn't merely spend the money or save the money. I had to invest the money.
Okay.
And that's what I did. I invested it in the stock market. Now, at that time, you didn't have the internet, things like that.
Sure.
I actually ended up reading the Wall Street Journal every single day.
At age 24.
At age 24.
Wow.
And that's $1,600. Every month, I'd get my statement. Sometimes it would go down, but as you know, it went up. It went up over years. It went up. And so that led me to want to add to it. It was so empowering. And so any time that I got a raise at work, even if I got a $25 check from my great aunt, I did not spend it. It went into the stock market.
Interesting. Thanks for coming on the show. We got to get you on again. Visit her online. Check out her book. You're doing a lot of volunteer work as well. The Options Lady. More of the American Dream coming up next. Well, as you know, the American Dream is a national program where we focus on business, the entrepreneurial spirit, overcoming adversity, finance, the market, all things that are relevant to empowering your American Dream. But a big topic of conversation on this show is housing. So what we do is we integrate local, top-producing, award-winning realtors to cover a wide range of topics on that subject, different micro markets, different niche subject matter. Housing is such a big topic, so we're going to bring you a lot of information right now from some of the best in your market. Let's check out these interviews. Well, of course, on a show called The American Dream, you got to look at the housing markets. All housing markets are local. Let's go out to Seattle with two of the top realtors in that marketplace, Ed and Janice. Let's see what they have to say.
Thank you, Craig. It's always a pleasure to be here with you and talk to your viewers.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Craig. We always enjoy being on your show. And today we actually brought with us a special guest with the new tax reforms that got approved right before Christmas. We thought it'd be a good idea to educate your viewers on what that could mean to them. And so we brought with us Shawn McCord, who's a CPA here in the market, and he's going to help answer some of these questions for your viewers.
Okay, well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. The tax reform law that was passed in December has several provisions that deal with home buyers and homeowners. Perhaps the most significant development or good news for home buyers is what did not happen. There were proposals to extend the time period to 5 years of ownership of a primary residence to avoid tax on the gain on the sale. At the very last minute, that was not included as far as in terms of the final law, and we still have the existing laws we've had for about 20 years now, where if a homeowner has been in their primary residence for at least 2 years, in the 5 years ending on the day of sale, the gain is tax-free to a limit of $500,000 on a joint return, $250,000 on a single return. So that's good news for homeowners.
Right.
But there's some bad news for homeowners, and that is that the deduction for property tax can be limited for some homeowners of more expensive homes. On your itemized deduction schedule, for those who still are able to itemize, there's a $10,000 total limit for property taxes, as well as either state income tax or state sales tax. So a $10,000 limit there. And if you own a home outside the United States, perhaps a timeshare in Whistler or something like that, foreign property taxes are no longer deductible. So we lose that. There's also a decrease potentially for some in the mortgage interest deduction. That is that deduction will be limited to interest paid on $750,000 of mortgage balance. That's for loans that start December 15th, 2017 or beyond.
So if my loan is greater than $750,000, I would still get to deduct, but only up to the $750,000 point?
Correct. Interest on that first $750,000 if the loan is a new loan.
Right.
So that's a decrease from $1 million that we had before. So that hurts. Also for home equity line of credit interest, that is no longer deductible.
That'll hurt a lot.
That'll hurt a lot.
For a lot of people.
The only real exception to that is if you use that HELOC to do a remodel on your home.
Okay.
Then that is subject to the $750,000 limitation.
So if you're improving your property and
Correct.
can document it, obviously, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So you want to make sure you kind of keep that HELOC set apart only for that remodel and don't pay for a car or college tuition or other things with that. Just use that for the home. Then you're okay to the $750,000 limit. These are the rules that we have for 2018 through the end of 2025, 2026. Everything goes back to the way it was before, unless the law has changed again, which is probable.
Probable
to.
What's the impact to the investors?
Well, for investors, investors should be generally okay. In fact, there could be an advantage to investors. There's what's called now a qualified business income deduction. That is potentially 20%. It does apply to rental income. I recently took a class and it was very clear that does apply to that. So that could be good news for real estate investors. So there's a mixed bag for primary residents, more negative than positive, but for investors there is somewhat of a positive there. Also for investors, the like-kind exchange provisions, the Section 1031 exchange, those are still available for investment real estate transactions there. So that's good news. Investors came out generally okay in my opinion. Primary residents, it'll hurt a little bit there. We still have deduction on the first and second home. There were some proposals to remove deductions for a second home, but that's still available.
Okay.
Probably, that's a rule Congress puts in there for themselves. If they have a home in D.C. and a home in their home state, they don't want to vote against
they
their own.
sweat that out,
they'll
right?
keep their own self-interest first and foremost.
Is there things that, or are there things that homeowners or even home buyers should be doing maybe to either take advantage of some of these changes or protect against a deeper impact of the changes? Or is it your situation is what it is, and
you'll have less interest to deduct, and for many people they will not be able to itemize. The increase in the standard deduction will create a situation where fewer and fewer itemized deductions. So that could come into play for those who have smaller mortgages or an older person who has their mortgage paid down considerably. So that will hurt perhaps the real estate market, because factored into that price of the home is the deductions that are available, and there'll be fewer of those for fewer taxpayers.
Yeah, and we have talked to some of our clients in the higher dollar markets and asked them, A, if they were aware of these changes, and they all were, because these are savvy individuals, but B, is it going to change their behavior? And to a man or to a person, they had no intentions of adjusting the price point they were considering buying. They just knew that there was less benefit as they got further above 750. So these are all issues and changes and topics that can affect each of us in a number of different ways. And I know folks, if they had more questions that were for you, Shawn, what's the best way to reach you?
Probably you can email me, Shawn McCord at Comcast.net.
Okay.
Glad to answer questions.
Perfect.
And also, those who buying high-end homes may put a little more down now to get their mortgage balance initially down to the 750 level.
That would be prudent. Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Well, and one thing that Janice and I really emphasize and focus on sort of as a main driver in our business is operating from a posture of education. We've found over the years that the typical consumer and home buyer just wants to know and then make a decision based on the information as they gather it, rather than be persuaded. So we really gear our approach and our service towards education and being more of a guide for you through the process. And I know Shawn operates his business very similarly. So as you come up with questions, or if you would just like to have a consultation to get a better understanding of what you can do and accomplish in 2018, we certainly would love to help you. And Janice and I can both be reached through the websites you see on the screen. Other than that, I do know that Chinese New Year is coming up, and we do have a number of clients that are from the Chinese community. So I know Janice has a message for them.
嗨，大家好，非常感谢艾德给我这个机会哈。那我们是在西雅图向海内外的华人祝福，那祝大家在新的一年里万事如意、幸福安康，谢谢。
Right on. So, Happy New Year to those of you in the Chinese community. And Craig, thanks again for having us on. We're going to go ahead and hand it back to you.
Our next guest is coming to us from Seattle. She's with Sotheby's International Realty. I've got Heather Osgood here with me. Heather, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Kara. Thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well. Happy New Year.
You as well. Off to a crazy start.
A crazy start. I know you're in Seattle. I know the market there is absolute insanity. So touch on what's happening with the Seattle market over there right now.
Well, we just got some amazing year-end statistics. And it's pretty fascinating to look. Our multiple listing service just reported that our total units available for sale dropped 4 times to under 10,000 units, which hasn't happened in 10 years.
Wow.
So our active and available inventory is extremely low, and that just continues to cause a supply and demand conundrum here.
Absolutely. When supply is low, it means it's a great time to list. So would you say it's a great time for sellers to reach out to you to list their home and take advantage?
I think it is, and I think it will continue to be through 2018. Some of those numbers that just came out show our median prices are very, very high, and so that's going to play an interesting role as we move forward in 2018. We look at Seattle and we look at the east side, and it's just a delineation in terms of geography here. The east side market is now seeing a median price range of over $938,000, and in Seattle it's over $725,000.
Wow.
So those price points are really tough. I think some of our compatriots around the country would gasp, but for Seattleites, we're starting to get comfortable with these really high price points.
Sure, it starts to become the norm. certainly when you see these prices. And do you think that you have the economy to support that? Clearly, there's no shortage of people being able to buy these properties.
Yeah, we're really lucky here. I mean, we have a great education system with the University of Washington and other systems like that, but we also have huge employers. We've got Google and Amazon and Microsoft, of course, and then there's some pharma companies and a lot of other interesting things that happen throughout Seattle. It constantly surprises me, Nintendo and some fun things like that, as well as just, upstarts. So I think we're going to continue to see the job growth that's going to help support some of this high real estate pricing.
Absolutely, it makes a big difference. They truly do coincide. So speaking on, where trends are moving, what do you see as the trends for 2018? What do you see coming up?
Well, we've had something happen recently where people are spending Bitcoin to buy houses, and we just had one close in Seattle. I think that's going to be a real trend with this cryptocurrency, so that will be an interesting thing to watch. I think universally, we're going to start seeing more housing trends that focus on the older segments of the market. As people age out of kind of their standard residential home, we're going to see some adaptability and some things like that really come into the market. And I think millennials, as this growing population expands and their buying power is so significant, I think we'll see a lot of millennials come into the market. And we're going to see, we already see so much social media and push in that direction, but I think we'll continue to go forward with this younger generation.
It sounds like it. A lot of it is catering to online, to social media. The millennials have a chance to get there. Do you also see people kind of, staying in their homes for the most part, or going to retirement communities in the sense of, the elderly population? Do you think the millennials have a good chance to get into the market because of that?
Well, I think with low interest rates and great jobs, Seattle does have the opportunity and provides that opportunity for this new buyer to come in, and we're certainly seeing that. And again, conversely, as the population gets older, we're seeing more and more of these active adult type resort residential communities. And we're seeing that really throughout the country, but Seattle's really progressive in terms of those different types of lifestyles. And so I do think that we're going to start to evolve into a little bit bigger picture of looking at those kinds of living styles and lifestyles.
It sounds like it. It sounds like Seattle offers everything you could need in terms of, starter homes investments. And Heather Osgood, you are the one to go to. You are the expert in Seattle. Thank you so much for being here with us today on The American Dream.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for watching The American Dream. We'll be back to you with more. Our next guest is a realtor out of Seattle. She is the CEO and managing broker of Lani Fisher Homes. We have Lani Fisher with us from Keller Williams. Lani, Happy New Year. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, and Happy New Year to you guys as well.
Thanks so much. We are excited to jump right into this. I know Seattle is an exciting market at the moment. You have not slowed down. Let's talk about what this year might look like for Seattle as a whole.
Well, Seattle as a whole, oh my goodness, it's one of the hottest markets in the nation, in the top 3 to be exact. What we're seeing is the average price of last year was around $515,000, and it jumped up to $585,000. So that's a $70,000 increase in what's going on. So what we're seeing is a lot of people say, hey, that's a pretty big hike, even $500,000, a little bit more. What other areas can we go to?
Sure.
So they're looking at areas in the surrounding area, like Bremerton. You can take the ferry over. Tacoma, it's a half-hour, 45-minute drive, where those price points in Bremerton, it's about $315,000. In Tacoma, it's about, the last I checked was about $309,000. So we're hovering about just over $200,000 less than the Seattle area.
Wow. So it sounds like you guys have those different markets, the suburban areas that people can flock to outside of the main hub. So there are certainly some options outside of the city that people can go to, correct?
For sure, yes.
Cool.
Yes, I mean, no matter what, it's a tight market for the buyers. As I'm sure you guys are aware of, lack of inventory is something we're seeing across the nation, And with Seattle being one of the top 3 in the nation, it's only getting tighter and tighter no matter where you're going.
Totally understood. Do you see 2018 mimicking 2017? Do you feel like it's going to go in the same trend as, you know, rate spiking? It's still going up pretty steadily. Is that what you can predict for this year too?
What I'm predicting is that I think we're going to have a pretty similar year to 2017. I think we're going to have a tighter inventory than last year. Interest rates are still fairly low, so we're still going to see that influx of buyers coming through, especially after income tax, when people are getting their money for their refunds. They're out there already looking at houses. And so, I mean, unless you have an agent who can really navigate this market on the buyer side, you're going to have a tough time. So just don't get frustrated and don't give up on what's going on and what you're looking to do as far as home ownership.
Right. Don't get frustrated. Go call Lani, because I know you've got some awesome listings too. Let's talk about the one you have in Elks Plain.
So the one I have out in Elks Plain, it was built in 1988. The owner actually built it, had it designed himself, so it's very custom, very specific. It's about 4,779 square feet, 2.58 acres of land. It does have a heated barn in there, a heated tack room. It's a 4-stall barn, outdoor arena, views of the Mount Rainier from almost every point of the house except for one room. Has a nice little upstairs apartment part you can use with a separate entry. Huge RV that can fit any RV size that you have, that's heated as well. Just a beautiful, beautiful piece of property.
You can tell the difference when a home is custom like that as opposed to something else. So it sounds like a dream. If you are in the market to buy, you got to reach out to Lani Fisher. Lani, thank you so much for being with us today on The American Dream. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys as well. Have a great day.
Thanks so much to you too. Thanks so much for watching The American Dream. We'll be back with more.
Good morning, Phil Rasmussen here with Synergy One Lending. For today's Mortgage Minute, I wanted to talk a little bit about the evolution of the mortgage process. Any of us who've ever obtained financing have all experienced what seems like an endless request for documentation about each and everything in our personal life. The beauty of evolution is that in today's environment, there are now options with programs on conventional financing that allow for digital verification of everything, your income, your assets, and your employment. So instead of supplying all those documents, you provide one authorization and everything is obtained on your behalf. It's a great way to limit the stress, reduce the amount of boxes you've got to go hunt down and find in order to provide that paperwork, and expedite the closing process. We here at Synergy One specialize in that process and try to get as many borrowers into that as possible. Please feel free to give us a call and ask more about it. I'm Phil Rasmussen with Synergy One Lending. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.
All right, that's all for today's show. The American Dream Legacy. Hey, if you want to comment on this show, if you want to follow us on social media, we would love to hear from you. Visit us online at americandreamnetwork.tv. Follow us there. And of course, don't forget to tune into our next episode of The American Dream. See you next time.
The preceding program was sponsored by Ignite Now Media with promotional consideration by Synergy One Lending.